You booked it, episode 151. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining me today on You Booked It, the #1 podcast where you learn how to create a successful entertainment career. Every episode is a masterclass on how to move your career forward. And if you want even more, head over to youbookeditpodcast.com and join the email community where we dig deep into what you can be doing right now to help book that next gig. And now, let's do this. Okay, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Zach Bencal. Are you ready for this, Zach?
Let's do it.
All right. Zach originated the role of Babcock on the first national tour of Disney's Aladdin and will be reprising his role in the New York company upon the reopening of Broadway. Off-Broadway credits include The Anthem and The Civil War. Regional credits include Goodspeed, Hartford Symphony, Forestburg Playhouse, Monomoy Theater, NCL, TheaterWorks USA, and various New York City theaters. Zach attended the BMI Writers Workshop in 2016 as an aspiring composer and obtained his BFA from the Hart School. Zach, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, fill in the gaps, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry?
Okay, thank you so much for having me, Dane. Like he said, I am Zach Bencal, and I am originally from Londonderry, New Hampshire. I have traveled all over the United States with the National Tour of Aladdin. I've been to 43 different cities and been on the road for 2.5 years, but I am currently residing back in Londonderry, New Hampshire because of COVID and everything. I did originate the role of Babcock on the first national tour, and I will be the first replacement for Babcock in the Broadway company upon the reopening. I have done a lot of music composition. I've music directed various productions all around the New York area, lots of children's theater, and I'm currently a voice teacher. So very musical, kind of a jack of all trades. Try to get my hand in everything,
Yeah, brilliant. For sure. In a time like this, we've got to be resilient and creative and think about how do we still do what we do when 90% of what we do isn't even open.
I know, it's crazy, but that's what's so important. And I think that there's so many actors out there that have a lot of different skills that they bring to the table. And I think that's a really important thing to foster as an actor.
For sure. And let's dig into this first section here. And Zach, look, I am a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote you'd like to share with everyone?
My favorite quote is, "You can't move forward if you're too busy looking to the side." And to me, that basically just means you can't continue on your path and achieve everything that you want to achieve if you're looking at other people, whether they be peers or just other people in the industry. And if you compare yourself to what everybody else is doing, you'll lose sight of what your actual focus is, and you lose sight of yourself. So it's important to stay looking
Oh,
forward and keeping your eye on the prize for yourself.
yes, that is so true. And I really like your version of that quote as well, because something similar has come up a couple of times through interviewing other guests, and you're so right. And what I really love about you bringing that up is that, again, here is another successful performer in this industry, everyone, that is saying similar things to other successful entertainers. It's clearly a fundamental of this industry that, look, you have to stay focused on you. Sure, you can appreciate and acknowledge what people are doing around you. Of course, you don't want to be completely blind to what's going on, but your focus has to be on what you're going for and not trying to deviate and try to be someone else or emulate, but to be you and move forward through this industry. And thank you, Zach, for bringing that up, because it really, truly has become such a fundamental of what creates a successful career.
Absolutely, it does. The casting and everybody that is making the big decisions wants to see somebody who is fully their authentic self and knows who they are and what they bring to the table. So obviously you don't want to take that a little too far and become so tunnel vision that you become selfish. Obviously, you have to work with so many other people and you want to be respectful and everything. And it's obviously important to see what other people are doing, but it's definitely about what you bring to the table and knowing what your strengths are and your weaknesses and having confidence in that.
100%. And let's get into this next section here. And Zach, of course, you are an entertainer. I am an entertainer. And I think that you'd agree that this industry can be one of the most subjective, brutally honest, personally emotional industries in existence. And you know as well as I that in order to create and have a successful career in this industry, like you're having now, takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, yeah, there's an outrageous amount of fun and excitement being an entertainer, there are also our fair share of obstacles, challenges, and failures we are going to experience and we're going to have to move forward through. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
I feel like I just have to say, obviously, COVID is a very difficult challenge for everybody in this industry. I was supposed to make my Broadway debut in June, and obviously, because of COVID, things happen, and it will happen after this, which is super exciting and something to look forward to. So that's obviously something that's a challenge, and I'm having to go back to the drawing board and reinvent myself. So that's a challenge that I'm currently working through, which is in a way, I'm trying to enjoy the process. But something else that's happened, I took my equity card fairly early on in my career after graduating from Hart. I did an off-Broadway show at the Lucille Lortel called The Civil War. And then I toured with Kerrigan and Loudermilk's show, Henry and Mudge. And I did obtain my equity card from that. I will say that taking my card so early, it felt like the right decision for me because I am more of a character actor. I just was finding that I was getting super discouraged when I was just going to the open calls and everything. So I felt like for me, it was the right time to take the card. But I will say, I do feel in hindsight that it hindered me a bit from working regionally. I had so many friends that were doing the point system as opposed to just taking their card right away. And they were working for years and years while I was waiting tables in New York and hustling. That's also when I practiced and utilized my other skills. I was a voice coach and a voice teacher for peers in the industry. And that's when I really started to get involved with some musical direction too. So like we said earlier, it's important to hone those skills. It's so funny because while there was a couple years that I felt like I was the callback king, I would get far in the audition process, but I could never land it because most of the theaters that I was auditioning for were looking for that one or maybe two equity contracts to fill, and being a 23 year old, it was a little bit challenging. But I will say that I wouldn't be where I am today had I not taken that card when I did, because the reason that I'm in Aladdin is because I went to an open call that I would not have been able to be seen for had I not taken that card. So yes, there's a bit of a lag for about a year, but it all worked out in the end. So that was something that I'm really grateful for, that opportunity, because I had been fortunate growing up. I was a big fish in a small pond, and I got everything handed to me on a silver platter. And not to sound cocky, but I was the theater guy in high school. To have those years in New York where I was hustling and humbled by the fact that I wasn't booking work right away was essential to my growth. And in hindsight, those are the years that really put some hair on your chest when you really figure out if you're a fighter and you have what it takes to be in this business, because those years take immense amounts of perseverance and you have to really work hard and keep your head in the game during times like that. I definitely feel like that was a growing point for me, and I am happy that it all worked out the way that it did.
Yeah, I'm really glad also that you brought up taking your equity card, because it's one of those things a lot of us will strive for. Because if you want to do equity caliber theater, you ultimately need one, right? They go hand in
Absolutely.
hand. But there is certainly a lot to be said about not necessarily making that your end goal, but instead really being introspective with yourself and thinking, okay, what is it that I really want out of my career? And if an opportunity to take your card comes up, is it the correct time? Don't just take it because you've been offered it, is what I'm really trying to say, is get the opportunity, think about it, and really assess if it is the correct time in your career to take it. Maybe it's the perfect time. Maybe you feel that it is the perfect time. Then by all means, do it. But maybe there are some other projects that you want to do that might be impossible once you do have it.
It's essentially kind of what I was saying earlier about it goes off of what my point was earlier, being you can't move forward if you're too busy looking to the sides. Taking your equity card is such a personal journey and such a personal decision that you have to really think about what's right for you and what you want. Yeah, it's a very personal decision for sure.
Yes, and don't take it just because you saw a handful of your friends take it and now it's working for them. Maybe it's going to be brilliant for you. Maybe you'd get more out of your career if you delayed taking it.
Exactly. Definitely.
Brilliant. And let's move on to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer. Tell us about that.
So I was very musical and I was very outgoing as a little kid. I loved all the classic movies, as we all did, The Sound of Music, The Wizard of Oz, all those things. And I used to sing and dance all around the house, but I saw my cousin play the Scarecrow when I was 6 years old in a production of The Wizard of Oz, like a camp production, and it really all just clicked for me. And I know that sounds ridiculous being a 6 year old, but when I realized that you could sing and tell those stories that I loved so much from the movies, when you could do that, when I realized you could do that on stage, it was signed the deal for me. And there's so many people
Yeah.
that get started later in life. And I think that's great that they found out, like, whether that be later in high school, that they really wanted to pursue a lifetime of theater because they were bitten by the bug then. That's great. Everybody's story is different. But I truly, this is not an exaggeration, have known what I wanted to do since I was literally 6 years old. There's just never been a question for me. There was never any debate of whether it was the right choice or not. I was so all in from the time I did my first production when I was literally 7 years old. It was Hansel and Gretel. And I was sold. I did roughly 70 productions around the southern New Hampshire area by the time I graduated high school. I had amazing teachers. I did some incredible shows. The southern New Hampshire theater scene is actually a hidden gem. There's a lot of amazing talent that's come out of this part of the country, and I feel super fortunate enough to have grown up in this area because I was around amazing people. But yeah, I've really, truly always known what I wanted to do. So then after that, I knew I was going to go to college for theater and I knew I was going to move to New York and try to make it.
Oh, that's so good. And you know what? I really enjoy that you discovered it so early. I am 100% that late into high school guy because I played sports growing up and I got injured out of everything and then I had nothing to do and then I had a friend of mine or a friend of my sister's who said she said, "Hey, we need a guy to help lift some girls in this Christmas show." I did that and I've never looked back.
That's awesome.
Everyone's got a different journey, and I think it's great. That's what I love about this industry.
Yeah, me too. It's awesome. Everybody's stories are different. And that's what they bring to the table.
For
It's like,
sure.
that's what makes you unique.
For sure. And let's piggyback on that question. What was your number one booked it moment? Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if they happen to be a part of it. What was going on in your life, and what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
I definitely have to say my favorite booked it moment was the day that I booked the first national tour of Aladdin. It was still to this day, I'm pretty sure, the best day of my life. It was the culmination of everything that I had worked hard for, and it was an amazing day. So, a little bit about what was going on in my life during that time. Like I said earlier, I was a callback king at that point. I had made it really far in an audition process for a big show on Broadway, and I had worked with the casting director and all these things, and I didn't end up getting it. But out of that audition process, they felt that I would be appropriate for Aladdin. So I got called in for Aladdin out of the blue. And it was unbeknownst to me that I was even in, my name was even in their mouths. So it was very much a surprise when I got the call that they wanted me to come in for this show. I actually got a phone call that they wanted me to come in on a Wednesday, and this was a Tuesday. And the woman on the phone told me that basically they had tried to get in touch with me earlier, but their email had gone to my junk folder. And so they were going to reschedule my audition and all this craziness. And I was like, no, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. And so I hustled and I prepped everything. And I went in for my first audition for Aladdin. But that audition process was crazy. It was about 6 rounds of callbacks. And the whole audition process was a month long, which was really crazy.
Wow.
So every time I would go back, there was another person in the room, a music director, assistant casting, associate director. And then finally, for the final callback, there was about 30 members of the Disney creative team. It was basically the most intimidating thing you could ever think of. And it was a really
Yeah.
interesting situation because Casey Nicola was there for the final callbacks, of course, but they actually brought in all of the guys that were up for the role of Aladdin's three friends. We have Babkak, who I play, Omar, and Kasim. And they brought in myself and 2 or 3 other guys, and they like 5 guys for Omar and 5 guys for Kasim. And they actually brought us all into the room together, which is something that I've never heard of anybody doing. And basically, Casey had all of our headshots on the floor, and he was mixing and matching different people. So he'd say, "Can I see Zach, Bob, Bill?" And we would do the scene. And then he'd say, "That was great, blah, blah, blah." And then he'd call 3 other people and he would mix and match. So it was really a crazy experience to see your competition. But at this level, everybody was so truly amazing and brought their own unique flair to the roles that a scary situation ended up becoming a really fun and interesting one, because at that level, it's like any of us could have done the roles. It was a matter of what the creative team felt was appropriate for this part. At
Right.
first glance, it sounds like that could be a really intimidating experience, but I remember leaving that final callback and everybody was basically congratulating each other and sharing contact information. And they were like, "Let me know if you get it." Everybody was just super supportive, because at that level, if it's not me, it's you know what I mean? So it was a really interesting experience. But yeah, I really had a different perspective during that audition process, because like I said, I had shifted gears almost to musical direction and composition and everything. So I remember thinking when I started that audition process that I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna get all hyped up and nervous and try to be something that I'm not. I'm like cool, and if I don't get it, I don't get it, and that just is what it is. And I had such a different air throughout that audition process. I don't want to say I didn't care, but I wasn't letting it dictate my life. And I feel like that is what essentially really helped me throughout that process. Of course, I wanted to do well and wanted to succeed, but to me, it was like, great. If it doesn't, then you know what? I have these other awesome opportunities to focus on. But I will say, gosh, the day that I got that phone call, it was the happiest day of my life. And I knew that from that day on that my life was going to change and I was going to have this amazing opportunity. So that was definitely my number one I booked it moment for sure.
Oh, that is such a good story. And you're right, such a unique final callback for sure, having everyone in the room and play around with it. And what I really appreciate about that story is you said a couple of things. You said first, it wasn't that you didn't care, you just went in there and did it. And that has become a
Mhm.
consistent feeling that guests on the show have shared, that when they go into a room and when it was their booked it moment, they booked it because they were really truly authentically being themselves. They went in, had a great time, had fun. Yeah, when you look at it from the outside, super high stakes. But it's how
Right.
you felt, that energy that you brought into the room, that calm is what ultimately landed you that gig. I also really like how you said, yeah, at that level, any one of us in that room can do the role. It has everything to do with what the creative team wants, and that is out of your control. So have fun, bring you to the
Right.
table, and have that calm, because that's what gets you booked.
Definitely. I remember a vivid moment being like when we were at that final callback. I really remember the moment where I actively chose. I was like looking at basically my angel and my devil, and I was like, should I indulge this and get really nervous right now and freak out? Nope. Let me just breathe through this and realize out of my
Mm,
hands. So I better just enjoy this experience. And it was an active choice. I remember that day, but it was very freeing. I was just like, whatever, let's just go do it and have fun. And I agree. I've talked to a lot of other people who had that similar experience. And that's definitely interesting to me that it's people booked the jobs when they were just being their most authentic self.
For sure. I know I personally can attribute everything that I've booked to that feeling. I can pretty much, I guess, hindsight, let's say that, hindsight, thinking back when I look on all the jobs that I've booked, I go, yeah, that's exactly how I felt. And if I really think about it, I almost felt like I left those rooms going, you know what? I think I got it. Or I felt really good about it. There's just like a different kind of feeling leaving that room. And what I really think is so important to take away is that this is a consistent thing that is coming up from all of guests like you that have had such great successful careers in this industry that continue to say, hey, this is how I felt when I booked it. I was truly authentically myself and calm and relaxed, and I had a great time. And that is why this podcast is so important for anyone that's listening out there to take that away and realize, hey, this is coming up again and again and again, to pay attention to that and to know that this is how some of the biggest roles that people have ever booked are getting booked, is by having that calm. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Great. And let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And it's kind of a weird time, right? We're amidst this global pandemic. How do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
I definitely think this is a great time to be working on those passion projects, of course, the projects that you've wanted to do for years but never seem to have the time to do it. So I'm working on a couple of things like that. I'm lending my music skills. I play piano and all that good stuff. So I'm lending my musicality with any opportunity that I have. I've done a couple of various projects to help different theaters, either that I've worked at or friends need help, like raising money for these community theaters around the country. Really, these small theaters that are really hurting right now. They're not, obviously, they don't have the big Broadway budget. So it's really important that people who are active in this career are doing things to help the little guys, because that's essentially where we all got started. So I've been doing a lot of projects like that, teaching some classes at the community theater shows at. I also am a voice teacher, essentially full-time right now. And that's a lot of fun. I've worked with some amazing voice teachers in New York City, and I've been taking voice lessons for over 15 years. So I feel like I have a lot of great things to offer, which is super exciting. And some of my students are friends that are my age. Some are a little bit older than me. Some are a little bit younger. So it's been interesting to work with different age groups and people and hone their skills because they love music as much as I do. So that's been really fun. I also am in the process, as we said, of transitioning into another aspect of the business for the time being. I'm working hard on getting my stuff together for TV film. So I've been working on my reel and I've been doing some voiceover work, which is really exciting. The acting reel for TV film has been a cool experience because I've actually been writing a lot of my own material because I have an idea of the character that I really want to portray. So I've been forcing myself to actually write the scenes, which has been an interesting thing. I've never written scripts or anything like that. So that's been a fun process and project to work on. And I am
Cool.
planning on moving out to LA in January. So I hope to make some great connections. I have a lot of good friends out there. So I'm really excited about that. And then how do I see the entertainment industry moving forward? I think that once Broadway reopens and we're able to have live theater again, I think that we are going to thrive. I think that the Broadway community is going to absolutely thrive. And I've heard some people say, oh, it's never going to be the same. It's never going to be what it was. People are absolutely craving theater. And so many people are doing amazing projects on Zoom, and it's great, the things that people have been able to create and come up with. But to me, there's just nothing like being in a theater and feeling that energy. So I really feel like the country as a whole is craving live theater. So I think that once it's safe, it's going to boom big time.
I really like your optimism and your insight on that. And I'm inclined to agree with you. I think there's so many creative things happening right now that when they have the opportunity to be shown to the world and to a live audience, get out of here. It's going to be amazing.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. And it is time to move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning Round. I am going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and
All right.
concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, first question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
I would say the inconsistency of work was a little bit daunting to me, and the fact that you basically have to put your life in the hands of the decision makers. You have to relinquish the decision making. And I'm a control freak, so I hate being at the whim of somebody else. So that was a little bit scary for me.
Oh, yeah. Second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Not to be cliche, but the best piece of advice I've ever received is you are enough. And not just in the general sense.
Hmm.
You have to believe that you really are. Because as we said, the more authentic you can be, the more success will definitely come your way.
Yes. And the third question. What is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
I think this goes for now and before. Staying healthy is super important. Our bodies are our instruments, so it's absolutely imperative that we stay sharp and healthy and on it. I think showing up in every sense of the phrase is really important. Showing up literally on time, but also showing up and being super present with the people that you're working with, getting involved in whatever company you're a part of, and getting to really know your fellow cast and crew, especially on tour, because the cast and crew on tour, they're your family. So it's important to really foster those relationships with the crew in every different city. And it's important to just show up and be reliable in every sense.
Such good advice. And the fourth question. What is your best resource? Whether that is a book, a movie, a YouTube video, maybe a podcast or piece of technology you've found is helping your career right now.
I have to say, I have honestly learned so much from watching different videos on YouTube. The videos that Backstage puts out, I found to be super helpful in terms of creating this reel, which is something that I'm actively working on. And there's so many different masterclass videos, different videos from different casting directors that give their opinions and perspective on reels and everything. I feel like you can learn so much from watching things on YouTube. So I would definitely say I feel like YouTube is my main source right now for educating myself.
Brilliant. And the fifth question. If you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently or would you keep it the same?
I would keep it the same, but I would really tell my younger self to try and enjoy the process a bit more. Being on this side of it, knowing what I know now, I'm so grateful for the way that I hustled and kept my eye on the prize and everything. But I was almost at times manic because I was so hungry to work and be on Broadway and be a performer for a living that I didn't always enjoy the audition processes or the little projects here and there as much as I could have. I always was thinking one step ahead as opposed to being super present all the time. So I would just tell myself to enjoy the ride a little bit more, enjoy the ups and downs and breathe.
Yeah, that is incredible advice. I'm actually re listening to the book, The Power of Now. Have you read that book?
No, I should. I'm going to write it down.
I read it ages ago, back when I was at the Boston Conservatory. And I'm realizing, listening to it now, I feel like I didn't even read it. Even though I know I read it, I loved reading it, but I'm listening. It's making more sense in my brain than it ever has before. I would really, truly, it's all about being present. It's The Power of Now, after all, is the title, but it is a very cool book. And I'm only about halfway through at this point, and I started yesterday, but it's mind blowing. So check it out.
Really? Yeah, I definitely will. I think that also this whole COVID situation actually will help us. I think that being home during this pandemic has shed light on the actual important things in life. I feel like we were all going a
Hmm.
mile a minute, and I attribute that to the mindset that I was in. We were just going, and there was actually not real time to stop and breathe and appreciate the people around you and the situations that you were in, whether they were amazing situations or challenging. They're definitely they happen to teach you something. So I feel like because of COVID, I think moving forward, I know I speak for myself, but I feel like I will just breathe and be able to be more present and appreciate what's happening in my life at that time.
For sure. And the last question. What is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in this industry you'd like to leave with our listeners?
I would just say be true to you and be as authentic as you possibly can and be nice to everybody. That's something that, again, when we're going a mile a minute, sometimes we might be a little cold to somebody. I don't know, not outwardly mean, but we might not be as warm and welcoming as we can. But this industry is so small. It's important to have time to really care and foster relationships with the people around you. So be nice to everybody and show up on time.
Yes, 100%. Be nice to everyone. That will get you a long ways in this industry.
Absolutely.
And to wrap up this interview, Zach, it is time to give yourself a plug. Where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
I am currently accepting students for voice lessons and coaching. So whether you want to develop some of your technique, we can work on that. If you have some songs that you just want to dive into and songs that you were a little bit scared to tackle, I love doing that too. So I'm definitely accepting students. You can find me at www.zachbencal.com. And my social media is zbencal, and that's the same on Instagram and Twitter. And you can reach me there.
Perfect. And for everyone listening out there, I have put the links to everything Zach just said into the description of this episode so you can easily connect with him. And be sure to share this podcast with your fellow entertainers, coaches, any art or entertainment educators, and really anyone you know aspiring to create a career in this industry. You Booked It is the #1 resource of expertise on how to actually create a successful career in this industry. Case in point, everything Zach just said in this entire episode, so much gold, so much really, truly actionable insight you can take away from it. And as of today, there are now 151 episodes of You Booked It. Loads of guests for you to go listen to, get their own unique insight and perspective on this industry. So much to learn. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share it so you don't miss tomorrow's guest. Zach, thank you so much for being here, sharing your journey, all of your insight. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Shane. It was awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't miss an episode. I have a new guest 7 days a week. Every guest drops more value and insight than any other resource out there, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a rating and review. Also, be sure to head over to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. All the best to you. We'll see you tomorrow.